Our first session is a panel discussion on a very important topic, food, fuel, finance, a multidimensional crisis. Our moderator for today's session is Ms. Fatima Mudassir. Ms. Fatima Mudassir has been serving the private corporate sector for over a decade. She is currently heading the Alumni Relations Department at Beacon House Group. She is well known in the educational strategic communications and the community engagement services. She also worked as a marketing consultant in Washington, D.C., and taught the IBDP program at a top-tier school in Beijing. She is also volunteering as General Secretary for Pakistan Foreign Office Women Association since February 2020. Our worthy speakers for today are Mr. Faizan Siddiqui, Mr. Sami Fateh, Sikander Bizenjo, Dr. Masood Arshad. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our worthy panelists.
A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you on the behalf of Beacon House, who are the organizer of School of Tomorrow 15th edition SOT events. Ladies and gentlemen, Guardians of the Future is the theme of SOT events this year, in which we are going to talk about a peaceful future. Under the peaceful future, we have a panel discussion, Food, Fuel, Finance, a Multidimensional Crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to welcome our prestigious panelists today. I'm so delighted that they have been able to take out time and are with us. They all are doing so phenomenal in their own respective fields. We are certainly proud of them. They're contributing for the greater good of the society, and so are we. I'm audible now? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the economic, climate, and energy crisis has laid bare the gross inequalities across the global in resources and income distribution. In addition, the link between climate change, global economic policies, and other problems are there. So we want to discuss in three different dimensions: food, fuel, and finance, a multidimensional crisis. Now we move forward to our panelist. Ladies and gentlemen, firstly we have Mr. Faizan Siddiqui. He is head of marketing and digital vegetable seeds at Syngenta, Pakistan. He's a very well-known person when it comes to marketing and changing the field, changing the dynamics in his respective field. Then we have Dr. Masood Arshad. He is senior director at Footprint WWF-Pakistan. Then, ladies and gentlemen, Sikander Bizenjo. He's manager external engagements, Engro Corporation. Sikander is a global sharper initiative for World Economic Forum at Advisory Council. He is also the co-founder of Balochistan Youth Action Committee, BAYEC. Then Sami Fateh, he has joined us online. He's a renowned journalist. Sami, welcome to the panel discussion today. Ladies and gentlemen, firstly, we will be going towards our panel. The first question which opened the house for the panels is, what are the reasons behind the multidimensional crisis? So from our panelist, we'll start with Sikander Bizenjo first. Let's hear his thought about this particular topic. What are the reasons behind the multidimensional crisis?
Thank you very much, Fatma. Thank you, School of Tomorrow, for bringing this panel and on this important topic. This is such a huge question. I don't think I have time to sum it up on what this multidimensional crisis, what are the reasons for it. But let me start by giving you the context on what I do and why am I here, and then I'll dive into the question. So apart from Engro, which is my professional job, which is my day job, I am also a social entrepreneur from Balochistan. I'm from central Balochistan, I'm from Khuzdar myself, and the organization that I've co-founded with my co-founder Banari is called Balochistan Youth Action Committee, or BYAC. We're working on climate, health, education, disaster response since COVID-19. One of our main areas is we build libraries, which we call the reading rooms. So far we have built or helped more than 80 reading rooms in villages that do not have internet. We have, yeah, that's perfectly fine. We have over 400,000 books in these libraries as well. And again, the very concept of multidimensional poverty, the question that you ask goes back to the very roots. Why do we even need such areas of work where students do not have access to So right now we're working on the disaster relief. As you all know, the floods have devastating impact in multiple areas of Balochistan. Our volunteers are working as we speak right now as well. They're working on disaster relief and then more towards rehabilitation. One area that I feel in context of Balochistan and the rest of Pakistan as well, we're always in the firefighting mode. We're waiting for things to happen, and then we jump in to firefight. Okay, how to resolve this? Do you think climate change, these devastating impacts, is this the first time is it happening in Pakistan? Definitely not. The floods have been happening each year and worse. In Balochistan, for instance, there's an area called Jafarabad. This year, it was dubbed as unlivable by BBC because of the temperature rise. Humans cannot survive in that temperature for a longer period. And right now, the place is submerged in water. Now we know climate change is here. Now we know the threats. What do we do to mitigate these threats? Are we going to be on the back foot and be responsive when it comes? Or are we going to do sort of proactive efforts towards adaptation? For example, I constantly hear the argument that Pakistan is not equipped. We do not have the resources. Its climate change is global. Nobody could prepare for floods. Fair enough. You can't prepare for floods. These are natural disasters. But you can learn from countries that are working on the same footprint. For example, Bangladesh. Bangladesh get far worse flooding, hurricanes every now and then. We don't hear in the news that hundreds of people have died. The casualties are far limited there because they have installed these hurricane response systems, these flood response systems. And I believe the answer to your question would be there's a dire need of partnerships. A partnership between the three Ps, the public, private, which is obviously the focus, but also philanthropists like ourselves who have ground resources, who can go to the last mile, where private sector may not have that thing. But private sector, what does they have? Private sector offers agility. What does the government do? They can amplify the work. What do organizations like we do? We can reach out to those areas that are normally neglected. We can, during the floods, after August, I think early September, we went to an area for the flood relief, and you would not believe we were the first ones there. The floods have happened for over a month. This was the first relief efforts in those areas. Now, how does a country of this sort, this magnitude, sort of neglect people who are already neglected? They're at the bottom of the pyramid. I'm talking about the people who are already at the bottom of the pyramid. They cannot sustain any shock, any small shock. For example, I'm mainly talking about Balochistan. There are two industries. One is mining, one is agriculture. A small shock in these will get the people in the poverty trap, which they already have. For example, mining industry, the fuel crisis, the rising price of fuel, mining is no longer viable for a small or for a medium entrepreneur. The second is agriculture. Everyone depends on agriculture. See what happened right now. The fields are not cultivatable for the next crop as well. So they are already in a trap. The answer, I would say, is public-private philanthropic partnership, and also in the longer term, education. Education also revolutionize education, where we also teach about climate change, not just about monitor and printer and what is mouse and what is keyboard. We are still outdated in that aspect.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sikander. We'll ask the same question from Dr. Masood. Dr. Masood, your thoughts on the same question.
Thank you, Fatma, and very good morning to all of you. I'm basically from WWF-Pakistan. While working with WWF-Pakistan, I guess every day is a multi-dimensional crisis when we talk about different issues. When we talk about the forest, when we talk about the wildlife, when we talk about plastic in the oceans, and when we talk about even the freshwater usage and its abuses, and also when you talk about food security, and also climate change and alternate energy. But what I feel is that, I think as already talked by Sikander, that the climate change, our crime is very minimal. You can see we are like 0.8% of our greenhouse gas emissions per capita that we are producing in this country. But our punishment is very severe. to be honest, because the way the floods are happening, the way the droughts are happening in this country, the way we are being affected by these climate change impacts. I think this is very important to understand for all of us, and this is the basic and the root cause of all the multi-dimensional crisis that we're talking about right now is happening because this climate change. Because it's a across the board. It's not only happening in one sector. It is happening in health. It's happening in food. It's happening in forests, wildlife, agriculture, everywhere. So it is impacting basically all of us. What I think from that perspective is, I think the three things that we can focus on in this one, because of markets, governance, and finance. I think these are the three things that these are cross-cutting practices that we need to introduce. Markets, whatever we are producing, has it got a relevant market in the international forums that we can sell, we can produce, and we can have a good supply chain that can go to that level. And even the governance, what are the do we have enough conducive policies for our work? And even if talking about the climate change policy, it's like developed back in 2010, 2012, and it definitely has been revised, but still needs a lot of work on that, because our implementation framework of this climate change policy is still not very, very smart when we talk about its implementation. And similarly is the finance, because whatever the finance is coming to this country, is it sustainable financing? Because whatever the work that we are doing is it heading towards the right direction? Because we talk about the fossil fuels, we talk about establishing coal power plants. So is it possible for us that we have been investing our resources into a sustainable future for our country, for our next generation? So I think there are three components that I really wanted to talk more on that. But these are the three: markets, governance, and finance are the ones which we can really focus in our discussions when we talk about this multidimensional crisis. Thank you.
Just food, fuel, and finance, a multidimensional crisis. That's a topic under discussion. The question is very simple. What do you think about this multidimensional crisis? What are the reasons? What are the reasons behind? Let's put it that way. What are the reasons behind this multidimensional crisis?
Difficult to pinpoint a core problem or core reason for experience. I think one of the biggest reasons is really a miscommunication between on the ground need and what governments and organizations are actually pursuing. I think more two things are very different. What people actually need on the ground in rural villages, maybe have access to the internet. Those needs are often very different than the needs of governments or what they think those people need. So to me, most of the time it comes down to miscommunication of need, but also there are other root causes that some of the other panelists have highlighted. I think governments should be solving issues before they become more prominent. Work on climate could also be another potential point that could be worked on.
All right. Thank you so much, Sami. We're going to come to Fazan Siddiqui. What are the reasons behind the multidimensional crisis? Ji, Mr. Fazan.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. First of all, thank you to Beacon House and the entire team for inviting me over. And I was invited. It's an honor as well because I'm a Beacon House alumni as well. So pleased to be here and contribute with my thoughts. Welcome to all the students and friends and all the people who are in attendance. Well, to me, I think it's a very interesting topic. You talk about food, fuel, and finance. So these words, three words itself, are a world of their own. So you can talk about all three words all day. So what is food? Food is what fuels the economy, fuels our lives, fuels the world, fuels everybody around us. And what needs fuel? Fuel is done by the finance. In order to fuel the food, you need finance. So these three are interlinked together. So I am from an agriculture sector. I've lived abroad for a while as well. Jumping into agriculture was a coincidence. So for me, what are the challenges? I think the challenges are working in silos. There are no partnerships. There's no cohesiveness. There's no sharing of expertise. We always think we don't want to be brave, that our expertise will be taken away by somebody and somebody will get ahead of us. The competition lies from where you start going on as a child. So I was in a session uh, last week in my company where they asked me to describe your three phases in life: your childhood, and then your teenage, and then what you're doing now, and the challenges that you're encountering and how you're tackling them. So for us, I think it's important how to tackle these challenges in a broader perspective. For that, I think it's important to have a strategic focus, have a cohesiveness, and see what you want to achieve. If you talk about food, World Food Organization, United Nations has already highlighted the biggest crises are not the floods, biggest crises are not the climate change, biggest crisis is the food security. And that food security is pumped by the climate changes factors. And me being in agriculture sector, I think, and also my counterparts who are in the panel, there's a lot that the world needs to do together in order to manage these things. And as I mentioned, food, fuel, and finance, they all need to come together to make a breakthrough for the planet, not just your country, not just your own self, but for the entire planet.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fazan. Yes, as a global citizens and responsible citizens, which we all need to incorporate and put our part in our own capacity. Moving forward to our panel discussion, I would like to ask, and let's see who wants to go first this time, what strategies can be adopted by the government to help cope with the crisis? We have a crisis, but what strategies we need to use and implement? Let's, who wants to go first here? Okay, let's hear Dr. Masood's thought.
Hello. Yeah. I think this is very difficult question and also an easy question as well. If you look from the perspective of the government contribution, I'm really happy that at least they are very well um, like self-sufficient in producing policies, in producing strategies and action plans. But the important thing is that we lack implementation of all these policies. So we are not able to do that. Most of the policies that you see in this country are shelved, and we are only very good in developing these policies. We have also, according to the Paris Agreement, if you see, we have also developed revised NDCs. NDCs are nationally determined contributions, which are our contributions, which are the commitments to the UNFCCC, that what we wanted to achieve in this country in order to minimize the greenhouse gas emissions in the country, and how we go for adaptation, and how we go for mitigation, and what we are doing for the loss and damage in this country. I think we are very good in that, and we also like revise our NDCs, keeping everything in mind, and we even the food system as an overall overarching food system we have also introduced in this, that starts from like food production, then you can have consumption and the customer behavior and consumer behavior, and everything is there. And on the other hand, if you see that the climate change policy is also revised, and we have got a revised action. Hello. 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 Yeah. Okay. So now we have also this government has also developed this climate change policy, and we have revised this policy in 2021. And it is again depends on how smart we are and how smart this policy has been developed in this country in order to have this implementation. If you see now the COP26 and COP27, there's a Conference of Parties 27, and our government is also going to this COP27. And I think this is a very right time to present Pakistan's case at this COP27. You can see the devastation that has happened in this country. You can see even after 2010 super floods. You can see 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we have got like series of floods in this country in different regions. And then we have a drought season. And then we have again come up with this very unprecedented monsoons. And we also have this hill torrent. This is very different from the 2010 super floods. And so we also need to have some really conducive policies, and which I already think that we had enough. But the only thing is that someone was talking about that where are our preparations for the next events, because have we done enough for that? Because every time we have to go for rescue and reliefs. So it's not that rescue or relief the only solutions in this country. We have to prepare ourselves for the next events. So what are our preparations? So what we have done in terms of our loss and damage in order to recover from them. So I think that these are some of the things that government has already done, but implementation is weak that we wanted to do. And simply when we are presenting our case at the conference of parties now at Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt, starting from like tomorrow, a day after tomorrow, I think it is important for us that we present our case in such a way that the Western world should also think of that if Pakistan is not doing enough in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, I think we should really help these developing countries in addressing some of the climate change impacts in this country. So this is our work. This is our mandate. This is our CBOs and also the civil society organizations and also the private organizations that we should be like taking this initiative forward, and we should be talking at this conference of parties in order to inform the global audience that what has happened in Pakistan, with the United Nations General Secretary who has just came to Pakistan. He also talked about the same, because he also pledged a lot of resources for Pakistan, and also have requested the Western world to invest in this. So it is more of a lobbying, it's more of an advocacy work that we need to do at this stage of time, keeping in view the problem that we are facing in this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Masood. Now I think I'll ask Mr. Sikander Bizenjo to answer this particular question. What strategies can be adopted by the government to cope with this crisis?
Yes, perfect. Thank you, Dr. Masood. I'll slightly disagree on one tiny point that you made. It's about the policies. The government has to bring in new policies. I think if we talk about the policies, just the paperwork, Pakistan is one of the finest countries in the world. It's the implementation bit, that's where we struggle the most. You're talking about the COP27, COP28 in the UAE that's going to happen. Fair enough. We're going to make a case that, okay, we are very vulnerable. Give us resources to help ourselves. Do you honestly think resources is the problem? I don't think so. I think if resources were the problems, Pakistan is a very philanthropic nation. I live in Karachi. Karachi is my second home. I'll call it my home as well, my first home. It has supported me all this while. If you go out in Ramadan, if you're outside during iftari, there's no way you cannot have iftari on the road. Everyone's feeding you. They're giving you biryani, they're giving you samosas, pakoras and all this. And this is just one aspect of philanthropy. The other aspect is what we are seeing in the floods right now. You know, there are people who've called us, "Ke we're going to give our pocket money to you. 500 rupees, 100 rupees. So this is the nation. I don't think resources is the problem here. It's the mismanagement of resources. How do we deploy those resources? Where do we deploy these resources? Are we going to buy food bags and throw them from helicopters like we're doing right now? Are we going to actually invest in the rebuilding and the rehabilitation that these floods should not impact these houses anymore? Right. There's another organization, amazing organization called HANDS. They do great work when it comes to rehabilitation. Their housing model is very simple, very unique. They're going to do elevation, they're going to involve some material in the houses that become 30% more flood resistant. Can the government not adopt such policies? That's why I go back on the same point of collaboration. Public, private and philanthropy. Listen to the philanthropy bit as well. We may not have the resources, but we do have some basic ideas and we have the agility. We can quickly work on without any paperwork, without any policy. We can just dive into the ground. The core of the problem, again I would go back, is the education, is the system of education, where I think most of you are Beacon-ite alumni. I'm a product of government school, but very few people from government schools get to this point, very few people. And I think I was very lucky my parents moved to Karachi and gave me a different set of education. But it should not be about luck or privilege. It should be a very basic right to get a basic education. Now, our education system, unfortunately, is outdated. We talk about the issues that our grandfathers, grandparents used to face, not the issues we are facing now. If we look at the countries which are progressive, for example, Netherlands, many other countries, in the Dutch schools, they're going to teach you your toys are about building dams because it's a country which is below the sea level. Their survival depends on dams. So the students, even their toys are building dams. So if you see them on the beach, they're constantly building dams with Legos. What are we teaching our students? Are we teaching them to build resilient housing? Are we getting those ideas from them? We constantly talk that 70% of our country is under 35. How many people you see on the panel which are under 35? And that's not just here. Countrywide, wherever you go, it's the elder generation, the predecessor who are making policies for me and the younger lot, which is 75%, 70%. That's where the problem is.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sikander. You rightly pointed out many things here. We'll move forward and we'll discuss them in our discussion later. Let's ask Fizan about the strategies used by the government to cope with this crisis.
I think I'll again keep it brief. I was a part of a discussion, and I think the Human Development Index is very, very important. You'll be very surprised to hear that Pakistan is behind Afghanistan, Pakistan is behind Bangladesh. We always compare with our neighbors, India. So they're an economic giant. So you're even behind Afghanistan, leave aside everything. So how do you improve that? That's where you need the government support. Where entities like Beacon House have got a huge network operational, but that's all on private terms. So Human Development Index is very, very important. Secondly, I think to build the expertise, you need to bring in the expertise and incentivize the expertise as well. You won't find many people who will be readily able to share those expertise. So it's important that you have the sharing of expertise. Just giving an example, if I talk about my friend has spoken about the collaboration and Balochistan aspects, and I think it's very important. We are a very young country. Almost 70% of our population is less than 35 years old. So they're very innovative and they're progressive. They know how to progress forward in terms of the future of the country. So the Pakistanis themselves have to bring in the change. Stop relying on the government. You can bring a change even from your own house, even from your own street. It's not difficult at all. If I going back to the main concern about the agriculture thing as well, you're behind in productivity every single country. You're building housing societies. You're killing away rich agricultural land. So how do you expect to compete? Many of you are proof. In Multan, housing societies have been built on the mango forests. In Gujranwala, the richest agriculture belt, same has happened. So when you're asking away people to sell away land for a bit of money, and then another issue I would like to point out is very important, is the financial inclusion of the people. Only 20% of the population of entire Pakistan is banked, and less than 10% in agri sector is banked. So how, when you're a cash-driven economy and you're not banking the economy, how do you expect to go forward? I know Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is doing really nice work in that. They're trying to bring in RAS payment systems and digital financial inclusion of farmers. Your mobile number can be your bank account. So banking system in terms of the financial inclusions of everybody, and not a cash-based economy, but a cashless economy is very, very important. Even you go to many terminal machines, they'll be telling you our terminal machine is not working. Can you give me cash? So how do you expect to grow forward? Agriculture is one aspect, obviously. Your yields are behind, and versus global. If I talk about cotton, Pakistan is lying at 598 kilogram per hectare. The world is at 788, which is 36.33% behind. If you talk about rice, Pakistan is 2524 kilogram per hectare. The world is at 4182, 65.69% behind. Issue also isn't land. You can make a lot more from lesser land as well. There are things like called hydroponic farming, where people are growing food on the terraces. You go into the Middle East and they have no food shortage at all because we are blessed with the land. So you have to have a linkage of financial inclusion, human development, and an educational system. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fizan. Let's ask Sami. Sami, are you with us? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So what strategies can be adopted by the government to cope with this crisis? In your view, what do you think?
As one of my counterparts said, I think one of the bigger problem. If you look at, if we're being completely honest, they are leaders, government officials who are not going to be here. They are not going to live through many of the problems which they are trying to solve. So I think the younger generation is more involved, but I think societally we are younger generation. I think it's all words and very little action. Governments always say they want, in terms of what they actually do to promote that. It's very little. I think a mix of both, but also as one of the other panelists said, making sure that there's more cooperation with CGU. But overall, I think it's a very broad issue in terms of this, simply because of who's making the policy. They do not have a personal incentive to solve, because most of the time they're not going to live through any of the problems which I have to live with.
Right. Thank you, Sami. Of course, we all have to be part of the problem. Of course, one entity cannot solve all the issues, and we all have to, public, private, has to be there. That's what we said. That's what we've established in our panel discussion. But coming to a very important question, how do financial institutions and the government collaborate without this sustainable solutions? Now, the collaborations of financial institutions and government collaborations. Can we have your thoughts about this? Who's going to go? Right.
No? I'm audible now? Yeah, I'm audible. As I already pointed out, your total population of the country, only 20% of it banked. And what more ease you can get when your own mobile number can be used as a bank account to send payments anywhere you want to. So it's a palm of your hand. But in order to do that, I think we are rightly poised. Let me just give you a few stats. Pakistan, 195 million have mobile phone collections, or 226 million population. And out of those 195, 120 million have got smartphones. So I think we are very rightly poised. It is not the government, it is the education that needs to be built into the mind, that how you can bank it. Recently, I was collaborating with some value chain partners for direct buying and selling of produce and exporting them. The problem was not the banking. Problem was there that the mindset that I need cash. My things don't need to be documented. So, and again, what support we need from the government here? I think the government has to support how it is a secure and beneficial system, because when farmers go to various banks, they ask for their passbook, their details, and they're scared that if they'll be deep diving into what their financials are, or they'll be having some extra taxes to pay on, and they fear where their taxes are being spent, and honestly, that is not being spent in the right way. So you have to build in that mindset. And having said that, over 70% of the population, less than 35 years old, you will see a big change in the next 5 years. That's at least what I foresee, because the younger generation is going to take over, and the knowledge transfer is going to be a lot faster and a lot more agile.
And how about you? Let's hear. Okay.
Hello. You can hear me now? Okay, perfect. Hello. Bolo? Can you all hear me? Okay, wonderful. Financial inclusion, definitely. We are an agrarian country. Agrarian economy, a classic case of agrarian economy. आवाज़ नहीं आ रही आपको ना? आ रही है? अब आ रही है. Okay. So more than 50% of our employment is in the agriculture. Actually, it's around 70%, but I'm going to be slightly on the lower side. That is the population, that is the employment that's already sort of in the formal economy. A majority of them in the informal economy. The women, for example, in the fields, they're not counted as employed. Majority of them are in the agriculture. And that links to so many other issues in the country that we're facing. Why is Bangladesh a success case and we are not? The only reason is that they have institutionalized the informal economy into the formal economy. They knew that women are the majority, the major force in agriculture. how can we make sure that they are also getting, and our economy is getting the benefit out of it. They've introduced it. I'm a big proponent of not reinventing the wheel. I think there are so many amazing ideas, so many things that have already happened around you. You just have to look around. In our neighboring countries, for example, India has this program, amazing program called Aadhaar. What does Aadhaar do? In Pakistan, for instance, if you connect your CNIC, which is Nadra, I believe Nadra has the strongest record. It's one of the best in South Asia, I would say. It has your entire family tree sorted out there. Can we link our CNIC? Can we make sure that those people who are in the far-flung areas, can they be part of the discourse? Can they be formalized? We already have those steps. It's just a matter of connecting these dots together. And I think financial inclusion for our country is a huge opportunity. I don't see this as the biggest problem. I see this as a huge opportunity. Easy Paisa, for instance, it has revolutionized the banking of the unbanked. And there's so much more we can do. And I believe this is obviously one of the critical issues. And we should not be talking about reinventing the wheel. There's so much happening in countries which are similar to ours. Can we not learn from them? Can we also include those ideas in improving our financial inclusion? Especially, I think this is a big solution, or at least an improvement in our gender lens. If you're talking about gender-based violence and so many other aspects that females face, I think this is one of the key solutions. Because once a female is economically empowered, they're also socially empowered in their own houses.
So absolutely, inclusiveness. Thank you. Inclusiveness it is, and empowerment. Dr. Masood, can you please share your thoughts?
Thing that you discussed is it has got two components. The first component talks about the partnership. The second component is the role of financial institutions and maybe how we can enhance the role of financial institutions within the country. I think if we look at the even SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, you can see these SDGs under 17 that slowly talks about the partnership. And I think we are very right on point. We are discussing here that this is very important for us. This is very important for everybody, because if you look at the issues, if you look at one single issue, that's the climate change issue, so you can see that it's across the board. So no single organization in this country can resolve this issue. So I think whether it's agriculture, whether it's health, whether forest, wildlife, or food secure, Ministry of Food, everything. So they have to come together. They have to work together. There's no, you can see there's nothing left out if you are working in silos. So you have to break the silos. You have to think out of the box solution now. You have to work together. So this is, we always hear from different sources that the lack of coordination between the different agencies, even within the policies. We don't even develop policies in consultation with others. Now at least we have started discussing at least some of the policy, but you can still see that whenever there's a new project coming into the Pakistan, so what they do is that they always say, okay, let's develop some policy. So let's develop some cohesion between the other sectors as well. So what they do is that once they develop, and then they keep looking for the gaps within the policies in order to fill in their gaps. So now, on the one hand, this is very important that we definitely need partnerships, whether it's at the governance level, whether it's at the policy level, and also at implementation level. This is very, very important. This is no second thought about this thing. When we talk about the financial institutions and also how the finances are being diverted in Pakistan and what is happening, I think if we talk about the floods, so what is happening right now? You see all the major financial institutions, including ADB, including World Bank, including all these financial institutions, they're investing in Pakistan on the really hard infrastructures. So we are not against the hard infrastructures. These are for sure should be built in any case. But we are also talking about they should also invest in the nature-based solutions as well, which is our strength, which is more sustainable, which is more cost-effective, which is more, you can see it's more linked to our daily routine. So I think by requesting, by inventing, by developing some of the projects and programs that can help promote this nature-based solutions within the country, and also mainstreaming them into the national and sub-national agenda will help a lot in that perspective. You can see the Green Climate Fund. The overall mandate of this Green Climate Fund was to have $100 billion in the equity every year. $100 billion in order to address the climate change impacts within the entire globe. So the purpose was, and what Pakistan is doing is, Pakistan has got only 3 projects so far out of this. So we are not been able to even access that funding so quickly, so efficiently. So the funding is all there, but we don't have the capacity even to develop such good projects. So I think on the one hand, we also need to develop our capacity to for the good negotiations with the international finance institutions. On the other hand, we also look at our own skills and technologies, that what is best for us, whether it is the hard infrastructure or whether it is a nature-based solution. So both have to work together, but it depends on us that how we work with them. And the last thing, I think the other when it comes to food security, when it comes to, because we worked on food loss and waste to a great extent. And I think in Pakistan, we are working with 300,000 agricultural farmers, and we're working on more than 1 million acres of land in the southern Balochistan, northern Sindh, and southern Balochistan. So we are the first one who has introduced this organic cotton within the country. And I think when we look at the organic cotton stuff that came from Balochistan, we were expecting 50,000 bales coming out of Balochistan this year. And we were also trying to convert this Balochistan into an organic agriculture province. This is what we have been agreeing with the top leadership of the Balochistan. So unfortunately, due to these floods, we couldn't happen. So I think you work with them. It depends on you work on the soil health. You work on the crop variety. You work on the supply chain. You work on greening the supply chain. You work on value chain. You work on the entire stakeholders. But that's again the partnership. That's again that we cannot work all alone. So we all have to work together, whether it is included in the curriculum of your universities and education, whether it is the segregations of waste at our homes. It's everything that that we can do in this country. I think that's more than welcome. This is actually moving towards addressing the climate change impacts in this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Masood. Now we'll hear Sami Fateh. He's the one who's actually using technology to address the issues. So in your view, how the financial institution and the government collaborate for these sustainable solutions?
I think collaboration between the two entities. I think the collaboration is core problem is one, transparency, where the money is being used. You read billions of dollars, but where's that money actually going? And in my line of misuse of finance, misuse of funds very irregularly. So I think transparency is, if there was more transparency over where the funds were being used, you'd probably find a lot of the funds are not being used, probably used more efficiently to address the problems which they need to be addressed. The second problem, bureaucracy. There is quite a lot of bureaucracy, and I can't speak specific, but I think internationally, I think this is quite an international problem. I think there is a lot of bureaucracy for a project, or even within governments themselves, there's quite a lot of bureaucracy been allocated to specific issues. So I think it's a mix between to know where the funds are actually being used, and then adjusting it accordingly, and then also the bureaucratic system which governments tend to enjoy.
Thank you so much, Sami. You're actually the guardian of the future, and you rightly said it. Thank you. Now we're going to ask another question to our panelists, which is about foreign direct investments and how are they playing a very major role in developing countries to address the issues of this nature. Yes, we do. We have questions from the audience, but we, okay. Right. So meanwhile, do you want to answer? Right, Masood sir.
So again, you spoke about the role of the government and financial institutions. So as my colleague has already mentioned that more than 50% population is directly employed with agriculture. It's contributing to about approximately 20% of the GDP. But I work for an MNC, but my company is reluctant in investing in Pakistan or producing seeds or pesticides in Pakistan because of the nature of the insecurity, because of the no intellectual property rights, whereas my neighbors have been getting away all those investments. So again, for this you need a strong lobbying with the government in terms of the intellectual property rights and in terms of the laws and regulations which can bring in the FDI, because again you are an agriculture based economy and you can become a very big exporter. You've just seen what has happened with due to the economic situations, the imports have been reduced and you've certainly have shortage of key food items which are locally not being produced over here. I'll just highlight one initiative that a lot of the tomato ketchup is being made from the imported tomato or imported paste, and we raised an initiative, why can't it be made from the local tomatoes? Similarly for the chilies, why can't it be made from the local chilies? So you have to inject that mindset, you have to inject that expertise, and that regulations will only come into play when you've got a strong law, because the regulations is the government's job. Private sector can only play their role. The aid organizations can only play their role. So in order to create that FDI pool within Pakistan, you need to have that strong sense of security which needs to come into play. And organizations and partners can only lobby for that. They can only play their part in silos. Unless you've got a strong IP protection rights, you won't be successful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fazan. We have very interesting questions from the audience. Despite of discovering more resources, is it not more suitable to educate people to reshape their living styles, minimizing human activities that produce pollution? So
Okay, I think this is very relevant questions, especially in the current context. If you see that this, can you go back to the question, please? To educate people to reshape their life, yeah. So I already discussed about this segregation issue. I already discussed about introducing the curriculum, introducing different educational material within the curriculum of universities and colleges and schools. So I'm just giving you one example. There was a guy who used to like study in some of the schools, Beacon House or LGS. So he used to have this peloton activity which WWF introduced like for last like 20 years. So when he got to nice jobs in his career, so he called one of the WWF guy and he said that I got my first salary today. So whatever I have learned during those days, I just wanted to contribute some of my salaries proportion to WWF, so that they are working very good on species, on water, on oceans and all this stuff. So this is the work, and this is the we want to inculcate right now within the students, within the educational system, that this is an important part of your life, and this is where we have to conserve our resources. We have to pollute less, and we have to in one example, if you teach one student about the water conservation at this stage, I think he will do it for the rest of his life. If you ask him to segregate his waste at this stage of the time, I think he will do for the rest of his time. So this is the right platform, these schools and these educations, where we are also working, we are working with more than 300,000 students within this country. And we are trying to build this case within the institution so that they can learn. And I think there's no point that if they learn it from here, I don't think so that they will be not be practicing or not doing anything at later stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Masood. Thank you so much, Sikander, Fizan, and Sami Fateh, and our audience. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, food, fuel, finance, a multidimensional crisis. As we said earlier, we all have to play our part to be part of the solution, to add value to the greater good of the society. This is what SOT is doing. This is what Beacon House is doing. We want to thank our sponsors also, UBL and everybody. If you have your feedback, please write to us. With this, ladies and gentlemen, we end our discussion, panel discussion. Thank you.